IRS targeting case this coming week. This comes as House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa is calling out the Commissioner of the IRS. He says John Koskinen's testimony contradicts recent statements from the attorney representing former IRS official Lois Lerner. Issa sent a letter asking the Commissioner to testify again. This in that investigation. That letter reads in part, quote, I ask that you assist the committee in reconciling apparent discrepancies between your claims that Ms. Lerner fully maintained records and the statements by her attorney that she did not and that was not her responsibility. Well, what does this all mean for the investigation? Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard and Fox News contributor. Steve, welcome this morning.
First of all,
good morning. Let's start with what's going to happen next week. 2 IRS employees will be in court.
Yeah, there are 2 separate court appearances by IRS lawyers next week, July 10th and July 11th. One with respect to a Judicial Watch case where Judicial Watch wants to know, in effect, why the missing emails weren't previously disclosed. And the second is regards True the Vote, which wants to bring in an outside forensics expert to look at the IRS computer systems and try to determine exactly why those emails went missing and whether the story that the IRS has told publicly is in fact true. The government is seeking to block that. The IRS is seeking to block outside access to its technology, and that's going to be a problem. There's going to be a fight about it.
Oh, talk about a fight and a problem. Why would the IRS ever not want to get to the bottom of this, apparently, by saying that they don't want experts from the outside coming in trying to find where Lois Lerner's vanished, disappeared emails went to?
Well, I think you've asked the question that we're going to hear a lot about next week. I mean, if there's nothing wrong, if there was nothing untoward, if the emails went missing the way that the IRS has represented publicly, why indeed would they object to having somebody come in? I suspect that the argument that we'll get from the IRS and government lawyers is that they don't want to set a precedent of having outside forensics experts come in and examine government computers, particularly with sensitive taxpayer information, every time that there's a problem.
Yeah, but that's a hard argument.
They
can have those people swear that they're not going to tell anybody anything, and confidentiality agreements and all that.
Yeah, at the very least, from a public relations perspective, it's a hard argument, I think, for the IRS to make, saying, in effect, we don't want to bring in somebody who might be able to really tell us what happened because we're comfortable with our own story. I think people would feel reassured, certainly Republicans in the House of Representatives would feel better about having somebody else come in and trying to make a determination as to whether what the IRS has said publicly is in fact what happened. A lot of people have raised questions about the claims that were made by William Taylor, Lois Lerner's lawyer, in a public television appearance last week, where he said, in effect, she saw this blue screen of death and the hard drive was dead, in effect. And, talk to IT experts. There was a good article in Bloomberg by Megan McArdle that says that's not really how it works, and it raises a number of other questions about whether those representations were in fact the truth.
Yeah, meanwhile, in terms of Koskinen, I mean, he could be asked about this when he comes back. Let's take a look at that exchange that caused the demand to get him back.
If you knew that there were some emails you might not could have found, there probably or possibly could have been emails in there that should have been kept under the Records Act, correct?
If there were emails to be kept under the Records Act, they would have been printed out. The responsibility is if you have an email that's a record, you print it out in hard copy. It's an archaic system, but that's the system.
So just based on that, did Lois Lerner break the law?
Well, her attorney says she didn't print those emails out because she didn't know that she had to do that in order to be in compliance with the Federal Records Act. So you've got what's a pretty glaring discrepancy in the testimony of the IRS Commissioner on the one hand and Lois Lerner's lawyer on the other, and what Darrell Issa and others want to see is to have them try to reconcile those competing claims. I think it'll be hard to reconcile. Either she did or she did not comply. It sounds like she did not comply, if you believe her attorney. It sounds like John Koskinen just didn't know what he was talking about. That was one of several times in that hearing where it appeared that he either didn't have access to the facts or was kind of making it up as he went along.
Yeah, making it up as he went along, the head of the IRS. Steve, finally, what do you think is going to happen? He's going to come back. They say these emails have disappeared. They did the best they could. It happened to 2,000 other IRS employees. Bottom line, what do you think will happen?
Well, there are so many more new questions today than there were even just a month ago. And I think what you've done is you've excited public interest in this. You've got House Republicans looking carefully at this. And this is going to unfold on basically a couple different competing tracks. There's going to be the public debate about it, number one. There's going to be number two, the House track, the congressional investigations into this. And I think number three, you're going to have what's unfolding in the courts, which hasn't gotten much attention, but I think has the potential to be where a lot of these things are decided. And that could compel the IRS to do things the IRS has thus far not wanted to do.
All right, Steve, thanks so much. We'll see what happens when he raises his right hand and promises to tell the truth.